All praise, all glory, all honors most certainly due to the Most High, the God of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Peace to you in the name of Jesus. This is your brother Elisha Israel of the household of faith. And I count it truly a blessing each and every time that I can come before you to preach the word of God. Never do I count it as a light thing to do so. All right, just a little bit about the household of faith. We meet every Sabbath at Indiana University Northwest Library Conference Center Room LC 105, 3400 Broadway. That will be changing very, very soon. We acquired a building. I'll keep you posted on as developments come up. We will be in there in about a month or so. So we thank God for that. We just been having finishing touch-ups on the building. It was a blessing to find the building, and we live stream our services right here on the IsraelTeach YouTube channel. We also live stream on or at www.IsraelTeach.org. Okay. We have a radio broadcast that airs every Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on WLTH 1370 AM, the region's choice. So you can listen to that if you're in the Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana area right there on the radio, or you can simply live stream by going to IsraelTeach.org and clicking on the live stream radio broadcast link. And with that, we want to get right into today's lesson. And in today's lesson, I'm going to be responding or answering questions. Pretty much answering questions that were sent through the website, IsraelTeach.org, as well as through YouTube. And quite frankly, one of these questions, I do quite a few lessons. I'm on here at least 3 times a week doing lessons, and I'm not sure if one of them, I'm not sure if I responded to it already or not. But it wouldn't hurt to respond, or maybe it was a similar question that I responded to. I don't know, but nevertheless, I'm going to respond to it. So that's, and the people I'm responding to is let's see, Sister Donna, who she's out of Colorado. She sent she submitted a contact form. And then it's a couple other people, Brother David. And I don't know where he's from, and this other individual, I'm gonna just respond to him and his racism, and then there's some others. I want to this Sister Ivy Bobo, just to shout out some folks. So it's on YouTube. She says, "My husband and I always enjoy your teachings, brother. May God continue to bless you. Thank you for your messages. We are always edified with you. Much love to you." We'll all praise to the Most High again for any edification that is received, and the feeling is mutual. Blessings as well to you and your husband. Okay, this brother here, Elbert Cates. This brother, I will say, people talk about supporting. You know, and they support. They give you encouragement, which is good. But this this brother supports financially and gives encouragement always. So and I don't take any of it lightly, because if you ever notice, we not on here asking for money. I don't even monetize the YouTube channel because I don't want you to see commercials. I don't want money that bad to have you doing that. I'm not saying people do that, that's wrong, but I don't want you to be bothered with that. I want you to get the word. That's what I want. You come to hear our services, we're not going to be sitting there asking you for money. Do we take donations? Absolutely. How you think we got that building? It wasn't free. It certainly wasn't free. And trust me, it's a whole lot that goes into that. So we're not we're not opposed to doing that. That's how things run. That's how things function. You have to have donation. And this is the particular brother who puts his money where his mouth is, so to speak. He feels that he is being edified and he donates. So we want to thank you, brother. He said, praying for you, brother. May God keep you strong. Even Moses got tired of Israel. I've taken for granted you being here every other day. Thank you. Well, I'm praying for you as well. And I pray that God keep you, the Most High keep you strong as well. And I can't even be compared in no kind of way to what Moses did. I'm just on YouTube, just reading what thus said the Lord. That's it. or, you know, preaching when it's my time to preach in front of the congregation, or if I'm going somewhere maybe to evangelize or talk to people. What Moses did, you know, that was whole nother level. But nevertheless, brother, I thank you. We thank you at the Household of Faith for your continued support. All right. Then we got let me get this out the way. This brother, and I'm not even gonna say this brother's name, and I'm not even gonna read the whole message, but I want to respond to something, because I said last week that there were certain individuals when I was coming up, that, because this is coming up twice, that's why I'm addressing it. When I was coming up, and I've been in the Word over 16 years. Okay, I've been dealing with it since about 2000, 2001. And this brother said, you know, because I mentioned to people that I learned from directly or indirectly. Okay. And I mentioned Brother Bowie, Brother Daniel. Those are two brothers that I've learned. I wasn't a part of their congregations, but I consumed their words. Back then, you were buying tapes. I was buying the tapes, or getting the tape CDs and listening to them over and over and over again. So I benefited from their ministry, even though I wasn't in their congregation. Then I mentioned Brother Elijah, who I was learning from, right? And then I said my father, who I learn from, obviously. Now I mentioned those individuals. Now, just because I didn't mention it, because people had a problem, you know, was you under somebody else, or was you? These are the ones that I feel that I learned from directly or indirectly. And me not mentioning somebody else doesn't mean that they weren't teaching truth. So I want to make that clear, because I had a couple people, I don't think they understood what I was saying. I was saying what I was learning from initially, who I looked to, and I listened to for many, many hours. So that's what I'm saying. So this is not me knocking anybody else, you know. I just want to make that clear. I'm not knocking anybody else. I'm just saying what my personal experience was. I had a couple messages saying, why you didn't mention this person? Why you didn't mention him? What you saying? Is he wrong? I was like, whoa. I was just talking about what I did. Okay. All right. So like I said, I don't want to even read the message, but the message is, but nevertheless, I just want to respond to him. So, and with that, let me get into this Sister Donna's question. She sent this, I believe, yesterday. Yeah, December 14th. It says, hi there, I've been watching Brother Elisha's teaching almost every day for a while now. I was wondering if you could please pass this on request to him. She says, Brother Elisha, please consider doing a lesson on people who claim that God speaks directly to them. I recently saw a video, I won't say the name, and said in the video they claim that God spoke to them directly and told them that a family that bear false witness against them as judgment, God killed their 13-year-old daughter who died of leukemia. Something that really bothers me is when people claim God speaks directly to them. I've only been in this walk for about 3 years. What little I do know is that Jesus doesn't just talk to everybody or anybody. Please correct me if I'm incorrect, but Jesus came here in the flesh. He only spoke to a small number of people. Thank you, Sister Donna. Okay. So now there's two things with that. So one is, yes, of course you have, well, what you see mostly in people saying that God spoke to them is you see people, these preachers saying that, you know, the Lord spoke to me. You know, the Lord spoke to me. This one thing I don't do, I don't get into what God told somebody else. Okay, I don't get into that. But it is true that you got these ministers, because the Bible speaks about that, saying they got a word from God and they don't. One thing I can say with all certainty that I will say is that God is not going to tell you something that's contrary to what's written in the word, which is what many of these false prophets do. Okay. And also, like I said, I don't get into what God may have told somebody. Let me show you why. Let me go to let's just go to 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel. You know, and sometimes people, they will do that. They will look at something that happens to somebody, and I don't know if that's what these people are doing in this case, but I have seen that. They will look at what somebody said and they say, hey, this came from the Lord. No, yeah, so that's a whole nother issue too. When something bad happens, oh, you must have done something. Like Job, the same thing that happened to Job. Oh, you must be wicked. You must have done something. But no, that's ultimately the human condition. People dying, that's ultimately, they're all gonna die unless they make it to the second coming of the Messiah. You know, so him saying that was God judging, God show him that. I'm not gonna sit here and say what God showed anybody. What I do know is that God will not tell you anything contrary. And there are many, as we'll read in the Bible, because I don't like going outside of this book when it comes to things like that. If I go outside of this book, historically it's showing you something that's going on right now, is to support what's in the book. But I want to go to 1 Samuel chapter 3 and verse 1. And just to show you, because when people talking about this, all these people talking about what's happening, what God showed them, a lot of times it's not even that time for that to be happening. This is 1 Samuel 3 and verse 1. 1 Samuel 3 and verse 1, it says, and the child Samuel ministered unto the Lord before Eli. So now he wore the ephod as a child. He was given over to serve. His mother had prayed for him to have a child, and she did. And so this is him in his service. So it says, and the child Samuel ministered unto the Lord before Eli. It says, and the word of the Lord was precious in those days. There was no open vision. Okay, so what is precious? Precious in this context, in this sense right here, means it was rare. It was rare, and there was no open vision, meaning there was no frequent vision from the Lord. See, there are times when you don't get a message from the Lord. Okay, so he's saying at this time there wasn't any open vision. Okay, and then at that time we read that the Lord called unto Samuel. Okay, but at that time there wasn't any open vision. Let's go to the book of Jeremiah. Jeremiah, I'm gonna pick it up at Jeremiah. Give me 1 second. Jeremiah 13. Because for all you see this a lot with these false prophets talking about what they've seen. And again, I'm not saying this particular individual that is not the sister, but who she's talking about is a false prophet. I haven't watched them, don't know anything about them. I won't even say their name. But again, I will say that that's something that you see amongst false prophets, of them saying what they saw from God, but you doing everything contrary to God. So God is giving you a vision, a word, but you're doing that. He spoke to me. A lot of times they'll do that to get money. But we'll find as we continue to read that even God could tell somebody who's not a servant something. That's why I don't get into saying what God shows them, what God showed or didn't show anybody. But what I do is I do know he won't show you anything contrary. Even if he's dealing with somebody that's not a servant of God, he's showing something. So let's go to Jeremiah 14 chapter. That's like, even if you really think about it, even if, for example, if you think about, and this had to be interpreted by Israel, but a dream was shown unto Egypt. He had to go in the dungeon to get Joseph. I mean, the Egyptian Pharaoh, about what was going to happen to Egypt. He didn't understand it, but it was shown to him, and it had to be interpreted. Right? Same thing with Nebuchadnezzar. He had a dream. It troubled him. Who did he have to go? He had to go get the slave. He had to go get Daniel to get some spiritual understanding. So now, that's why I'm very careful about, again, saying what somebody seen or hasn't seen. I know who God is dealing with according to his word. I know who we gave the oracles of God to is none other than Israel. I know who our priests is none other than Israel. But this is Jeremiah 14 and verse 13. It reads, then said our Lord God, behold, the prophets say unto them, ye shall not see the sword, neither shall ye have famine, but I will give you assured peace in this place. Jeremiah, who was a prophet of God, who God indeed showed his what was going to take place, who he did give a vision of the future. He told him what was going to happen to this people, but he said, hey, destruction is coming. But the false prophets, they prophesied something else, didn't they? They said the word of God is something else. They said, and that's why he's complaining. He said, behold, the prophets say unto them, unto the people, ye shall not see the word, neither shall ye have famine, but I will give a sure peace in this place. So the prophets were prophets, they were promising peace, and they saying they got that message from the Lord, but Jeremiah is the prophet of God. He knows better. Verse 14, then the Lord said unto me, the prophets prophesy lies in my name. So yeah, people will come and say they got a word from the Lord, they got prophecy from the Lord. It's not. It said the prophets prophesy lies in my name. I sent them not, neither have I commanded them, neither spake unto them. See, the prophet of God is supposed to come from God. The prophet is supposed to be sent by God to give you a message. He said, neither spake, he said, neither have I commanded them, neither spake I unto them. They prophesy unto you a false vision and divination, a thing of naught, and the deceit of their heart. Then he said, therefore, so he said, hey, they lying to you. Then he said, therefore, thus saith the Lord concerning the prophets that prophesy in my name, I sent them not, yet they say, sword and famine shall not be in this land. By sword and famine shall those prophets be consumed. So they say they're gonna end in utter destruction, and that's ultimately when it's all said and done, because this is really nothing to play with at all. When you're talking about you dealing in the word of God, people's souls are on the line. Your soul is on the line. Like he told Ezekiel, I've set thee as a watchman to warn the people from me. And he said, if you don't warn the people and they die and they sin, they're going to be held accountable, but so will you. So this is nothing to play with. See, people trying to get rich. Them talking about, yeah, I got a word from the Lord. Or they're trying to seem real spiritual, talking about, yeah, the Lord spoke to me. This ain't nothing to play with. Because you talking about the Lord spoke to you and you try to get some money out of people, you tell people something in error to be to your own detriment. This and today is Jeremiah 23. Because he's talking about these false ministers. Jeremiah 23 and verse 1, he said, woe be unto the pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pastures, saith the Lord. Woe be unto them. It said, therefore, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, against the pastors that feed my people. Ye have scattered my flock and driven them away and have not visited them. Behold, I will visit upon you the evil of your doings. The pastor, the preachers, the shepherds, and the teachers are supposed to be like a shepherd and protect the people. You're supposed to protect the people. You would protect the people by instructing them so that they would do what thus saith the Lord, so that they can ultimately gain salvation and not be destroyed. That's what you should be doing. You're not supposed to be fleecing the flock. You're not supposed to be lying to them so you can get all their money. That's not what you should be doing. But let's get down a little bit. Let's go to verse 21. Because he says something about these prophets. He says, well, I'm going to pick it up at verse 9 just to read, because see, I want to read the conditions. And part of the conditions of the people is a direct result of the failure of the pastors. This is verse 9. It said, mine heart within me is broken because of the prophets. All my bones shake. I am like a drunken man and like a man whom wine hath overcome, because of the Lord and because of the words of his holiness. He says something, for the land is full of adulterers, but because of swearing the land mourneth. The pleasant places, the wilderness are dried up, and their course is evil, and their force is not right. Wickedness, sin is rampant. Then it said, for both prophet and priest are profane. They both profane. It said, hey, in my house have I found their wickedness, saith the Lord. So now they're causing the people to err. Now let's skip down to verse 21. It says, concerning them, it says, I have not sent these prophets, yet they ran. I have not spoken to them, yet they prophesied. I got a word from the Lord. They were saying that back here. He said, I didn't send them, yet they ran. I didn't speak unto these, yet they prophesied, as if I had spoken to them. But what would they have done? See, this is the main thing you need to worry about. If somebody calling themselves a pastor, a bishop, teacher, a preacher, whatever they call themselves, this a prophet. Ultimately, because the prophets came to do one thing, mainly. He says, 22, but if they had stood in my counsel and had caused my people to hear my words, then they should have turned them from their evil and from the evil of their doings. You see what the prophet, the man of God, is supposed to do? He's supposed to tell you what thus saith the Lord so you can clean yourself up, so you can get out of sin. That is the objective of bringing the word to you, talking about you got to work. See, the prophets would come and they would tell. See, that was the mercy of God. He would send the prophets to the people and tell them, listen, if you don't do what thus saith the Lord, don't you understand what's about to happen? Destruction is on the horizon. Famine is on the horizon. Plague and pestilence is on the horizon. War is on the horizon. Captivity is on the horizon. If you don't turn from your sin, if you don't turn from your iniquity, that's what he's supposed to be doing. That's the word. So, but you got some, they ain't turning nobody from sin. They ain't talking about sin. They saying sin done away with, but they got a word from the Lord. I got a problem with that. That's foolishness. You ain't doing nothing the word said, but you always got a word from the Lord. I don't know about that one. But nevertheless, I won't sit here and say what God ain't told you. I know he ain't told you something that's contrary to the word. Let's go to 2 Chronicles. 2 Chronicles. Because brothers and sisters, for all these people talking about they got a word, you look around and practically, you ain't in Israel amongst our people. There's a you have to search far and wide to find somebody who's telling you what thus saith the Lord. The vast majority of what you hear, the vast majority of the people call themselves preaching and teaching and minister are false. This is 2 Chronicles 15 and verse 3. And like I was saying earlier, I'm going to just read this one verse, like verse 1. I'll pick it up at verse 1. Like I was saying earlier, there are times when you don't see the word of the Lord going forth. This is 2 Chronicles 15 and verse 1. It says, and the Spirit of God came upon Azariah, the son of Oded. So now the spirit that's on the man of God, it came on him, the Holy Ghost. It said he went out to meet Asa and said unto him, hear ye me, Asa, and all Judah and Benjamin. Listen up. It said the Lord is with you while ye be with him. So it said he with you as long as you with him. It says, and if ye seek him, he will be found of you. But if you forsake him, he will forsake you. You see how he came with a message from God? And he told him straight up, hey, if you with the Lord, he'll be with you. But if you turn, that's one thing about God, man. If you turn your back on God, he will turn his back on you. But nevertheless, in verse 3, he says something. It says, it's written for a long season, Israel hath been without the true God and without a teaching priest and without law. You see that? So for all this prophecy, people look at us as the people, for the most part, yeah, you got those that are preaching. They fall few in between. You can barely find them. That's preaching, because our people are destroyed. Our people have been destroyed through slavery, Christianity. We are engulfed in spiritual adultery and straight up immorality in the wicked, and during this sojourn in this wicked country that we in right now. That's why this place, that's what I'm telling you. I'm telling you, this is not going to keep going on like it is. A day of reckoning is on the horizon. It has to be. because that's how the Lord operates. That cup of iniquity will reach its brim, and then will come the destruction of that country. Let's go to Amos, the 8th chapter. Right after Joel, Amos, the 8th chapter. And we're going to pick it up at verse 8. Excuse me, verse 11. Verse 11. Because when you look at how things are going on right now, you can understand this verse right here. There is a famine. There is a dearth, if you will, for the word of God. Everybody talking about they got it, but they're not telling you what thus said the Lord for real. This is Amos 8 and verse 11. It said, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of the Lord. You ain't even gonna be able to hear the words of the Lord. It says, and they shall wander from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of the Lord, and shall not find it. Let's go to Matthew, the 24th chapter. Matthew, the 24th chapter. I want to pick it up at verse, because they asked him, what shall be the sign of that coming in of the end of the world? Matthew, the 24th chapter. You got people, he warns you of deception. In verse 4, it says, and Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. But many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. In verse 11 says, and many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. But then what you think they coming with? They coming with, I got a word from the Lord. But they ain't coming from the Lord. They ain't from God. They false. And they're not teaching you what thus said the Lord. They're not turning you from your sin, which is the point of the prophets. That's why he had to rise up early, sent them unto you as a people. And what did you do to them? Let's go to Matthew 23. And we'll pick it up at verse 29. It said, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you build the tombs of the prophets and garnish the sepulchres of the righteous. So now you decorating the tomb and say, this is what they say, and say, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. Wherefore ye be witnesses unto yourselves that ye are the children of them which killed the prophets. See, the prophets of God, the true prophets of God, the man of God, catches hell dealing with this, because the people are rejecting God. Therefore, they rejected the one he sent. And then when the Most High sent his son, they killed him, the prophet of prophets. Talking about a word. The verse 31, it said, wherefore ye be witnesses unto yourselves that ye are the children of them which killed the prophets. Fill ye up then the measure of your fathers. He said, ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, how can ye escape the damnation of hell? Talking to the religious faction of the time. Say, wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets and wise men and scribes. I'm sending them unto you. I'm sending them unto you so that you would do what? Correct your ways. And it says something, and like I said, you catch hell. It says some of them ye shall kill and crucify, and some of them ye shall scourge in your synagogues and persecute them from city to city. That's why I said, shake the dust off your feet and go to the next city if they don't accept what thus saith the Lord. You see what Paul and the perils that Paul went through. And Antioch, and Iconium, and Lystra. Persecution, stoned to death, beaten, in prison. You have those who were martyred for the word of God. That upon you may come, talking about these religious ones. He said, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zacharias, son of Berechias, whom ye slew between the temple and the altar. Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation. Let's go all the way back to Numbers. Because again, I am careful, though at the same time, like I know there's a bunch of false prophets giving you a false word. So more importantly, is it more important to look at what they're saying you need to do as far as your moral standing, what you need to do for salvation, as opposed to somebody telling you what God told them on a couch last night, and what they tell them ain't got nothing to do with you or anybody else. As far as your obligations in service of God. But this is Numbers 22, because again, I'm careful to say what God ain't show somebody, because I don't know. But I know he's not gonna show you anything contrary. And even here, you'll see that when God shows you can't really go against it, no matter if you're not technically a servant or not. Let's go to this is Numbers 22 at verse 1. Numbers 22 at verse 1, it reads, and the children of Israel set forward and pitched in the plains of Moab on this side Jordan by Jericho. And Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. Okay, so when you read about that, because it was foretold that he was going to do that, or that the Amorites, their cup of iniquity is going to reach his brim. You read that in about Genesis, the 17th chapter, I believe, or the 15th chapter, excuse me, 15th chapter. And then it says, when Abraham got a vision, because he was a prophet. Matter of fact, let me just read that. This is an example. This is Genesis 15 and verse 12. It says, and when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and lo, and horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. So now this was shown unto him. This was prophecy. So they were going to go on, his people were going to go into slavery, his seed, and it says, and also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward they shall come out with great substance. You can read that they spoiled the Egyptians in the book of Exodus when they came out. It's around the 12th chapter. Then it says, and thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace, thou shalt be buried in a good old age. He says something, but in the 4th generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. Okay, so at that time, the iniquity had not reached, the cup of iniquity had not reached its brim. But then it says, so going back to Numbers 22, so Balak saw something, verse 2, Numbers 22 and 2, it says, and Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites, and Moab was so afraid of the people, because they were many, and Moab was distressed because of the children of Israel. So now they're afraid. And Moab said unto the elders of Midian, now shall this company lick up all that are all round about us, as the ox licketh up the grass of the field. And Balak the son of Zippor was king of the Moabites at that time. He sent messengers therefore unto Balaam, the son of Beor, to Pethor, which is by the river of the land of the children of his people, to call them, saying, behold, there is a people come out from Egypt. Behold, they cover the face of the earth, they abide over against me. Come now, therefore, I pray thee, curse me this people, for they are too mighty for me. Peradventure I shall prevail, that we may smite them, and that I may drive them out of the land. What that he whom thou blessest is blessed, and he whom thou cursest is cursed. Okay, so now he's requesting rather, excuse me, that Balaam come and curse this people. Verse 7, and the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the rewards of divination in their hand, and they came unto Balaam and spake unto him the words of Balaam. So now he got rewards for divination. So he's dealing in something spiritual, this Balaam. Now let's skip down. Let's go to Numbers 23. Because even though Balaam is not a servant of God, God's going to show himself. Numbers 23 and verse 4. It says, and God met Balaam, and he said up unto him, I have prepared 7 altars, and I have offered upon every altar a bullock and a ram. And the Lord put a word in Balaam's mouth, and said, return unto Balak, and thus thou shalt speak. So now he got a word from the Lord. So I can't sit here and say I'm not quick to say what God hasn't shown somebody, but I question whether or not it's contrary to what's in the scriptures in this day and age. But nevertheless, he says, In verse 6, and he returned unto him, and lo, he stood by his burnt sacrifice, he and all the princes of Moab, and he took up his parable and said, Balak the king of Moab hath brought me from Edom out of the mountains of the east, saying, come, curse me, Jacob, and come, defy Israel. Verse 8, how shall I curse whom God hath not cursed? Or how shall I defy whom the Lord hath not defied? For from the top of the rocks I see him, and from the hills I behold him. Lo, the people shall dwell alone, and shall not be reckoned among the nations. Who can count the dust of Jacob and the number of the fourth part of Israel? Let me die the death of the righteous, and let my last end be like his. And Balak said unto Balaam, what hast thou done unto me? I took thee to curse mine enemies, and behold, thou hast blessed them altogether. And he answered and said, must I not take heed to speak that which the Lord hath put in my mouth? He said, I can't say nothing else. I can't say nothing else but what he said to say. Now let's go down a little bit more. Verse 27. What does it say? Actually, hold on one second. Let's go to Numbers 24. And just see something else he said. He said in chapter 24 and verse, because Balak at a time was Balaam, because he was just saying what thus said the Lord. Verse 17, Numbers 24 and 17, I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab, and destroy all the children of Sheth, and Edom shall be a possession. Seir also shall be a possession, for his enemies in Israel shall do valiantly. Out of Jacob shall come he that shall have dominion, and shall destroy him that remaineth of the city. So he's prophesying of the Messiah here. Let's go, last place on this. Let's go to the book of Joel, right before Amos. Joel, we're going to pick it up at chapter 2, and we're going to read verse 28. Because for all the stuff people saying they seeing and do, it's going to come a time when that's going to be wholesale. This is Joel 3, and we're going to pick it up at Joel 2 and verse 28. It says, I'm going to pick it up at verse 27. Joel 2 and verse 27. Because there's deliverance for his people. Then it says, and ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, and that I am the Lord your God, and none else, and my people shall never be ashamed. That's not happened yet. Okay. Then it says, and it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams. Your young men shall see visions. You saw a picture of that on the day of Pentecost. You read it in Acts. But that's going to be in the future. That's going to be in future. That's going to be wholesale. It says, and also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit. See, that's what's going to come in the future. So again, sister, yeah, I'm not quick to say what God didn't show somebody, but what I do look, I know there are false prophets saying what God showed them. I know people who don't know God, thinking because they think in their head they think something, they automatically God showed them to it because it's on their mind, come out the vain imagination of their mind. But as we read, God showed Balaam something, and he wasn't a servant of God. So I'm not quick to say what somebody has not seen. But I do know the most important thing for whoever is talking is ultimately it's about what thus saith the Lord in his book and finding out what is the standard, what is our obligation to serve him. Okay, so I hope that answers the good sister's question. I'm gonna go on to the next one. This is let's see. I'm gonna answer this quickly. This is David, brother David. He said, I just need help. I'm having a hard time knowing what to do. We are to flee, right? Jordan is the place to be. However, when the third temple in Israel is finished, then that is the time to flee. However, I thought we were going to be gathered back into the wilderness. And what about the 144,000? Okay, let's go to Matthew real quick. Matthew 24. Matthew 24, and we're going to pick it up because you're going to see all these signs. Like I was saying earlier, Matthew 24, when the disciples came unto him privately saying, tell us, when shall these things be? What shall be the sign of thy coming unto the end of the world? Because he told them there will become a time where there won't be one stone left upon another that shall not be thrown down. So you got to look at it in the context. Okay? So they asked him, he said, take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear wars, rumors of wars, pestilence, earthquake, and disease. Nation shall rise up against nation, kingdom against kingdom. He said, then they shall deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. He says, many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. But he didn't do it to the end, the same shall be saved. The gospel is going to be preached in all the nations, and then shall the end come. But he says something. When ye therefore, so it's not when the temple is built. He said, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. See, because that's not going to happen. When you read Daniel, look at the timeline. And I would encourage you to look at former lessons on the Great Tribulation. Okay, because I deal with that, or my father deals with that. Look back, it's almost 1,000 videos on here. Look back to where it's talking about the Great Tribulation. Okay, there's several videos on the Great Tribulation in that timeline. I'm talking about the longer ones, like the Sabbath day lesson, that's dealing with that timeline. But the time, he says, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of the desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. So that's the time to flee. Okay, because they're gonna be sacrificing in the temple prior to that, and the Lord is gonna make a way. They're going to be there for how long? Let's go to Revelation 12. And we know this is the matter of fact, before you go there, let's go to Thessalonians. Okay, let's go to Thessalonians chapter 2 and 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 1. Because he is that abomination of desolation. It's going to be, it has to be a third temple. You got some that don't believe there's going to be a third temple, but the Bible is clear. 2 Thessalonians 2 and 1, it says, now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, and by our gathering together unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, as that the day of Christ is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. So there's going to be a falling away, and the man of sin, the son of perdition, the abomination of desolation, the one they call an antichrist, is going to be revealed. And he's coming out of the office of the papacy. Okay, I want to make that clear. It says something about him. It says, who opposeth and exalted himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Okay? So that's what he's going to do. That's when the abomination of the desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet is going to stand in the holy place. Whoso read it, let him understand. And then he says you need to flee. He tells you if you go down in Matthew 24 further, let's go back there just to read it. Back to Matthew 24. Then we go to Revelation. That'll be the it on this. Matthew 24 and verse 21. Because he tells you to flee. Then he says verse 21, for then shall be great tribulation. He's telling you why you need to flee. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be. Revelation 12. Revelation 12. And he has a place prepared, not a rapture. There is no rapture, but he has a place prepared for his servants. This is Revelation 12 and verse 6. It reads, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had the place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,203 days. Okay, so now she is the woman. That's the woman who is Israel. That's what she's going to be in the wilderness. Verse 14. Well, verse 13. And when the dragon saw that he was cast out into the earth, he persecuted the woman, was brought forth the man child. The woman is Israel. The man child is the Messiah. It says, and the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might flee into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time, times and a half, a time, from the face of the serpent. 1260 days, excuse me. Times and the dividing of times is 3.5 years. That's the period That's the duration of the Great Tribulation. Okay. Now let's go to because the brother asked about the 144. Let's go to let's go to Revelation 14, because that's this, when you talk about the 144, this is right before. Well, let's just read it. Let's just read it. This is Revelation 14 and verse 1. It says, and I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the mount. Because really, this is different. You can't, so like this 144 ain't necessarily got nothing to do with the wilderness. Don't put those two together. Okay, so what we need to understand, this is what we need to understand, really. Okay, when you talk, sometimes people get this mixed up. When you talk about the place of safety, that's what God's people are going to be safe from great tribulation. Okay, for 3.5 years. He's going to return back on this earth, and he's going to regather all his people. It tells you that in Matthew. Matter of fact, hold your finger here, Revelation, and go to Matthew, the 24th chapter. Back to Matthew 24th chapter, because he tells you what's going to happen immediately after the tribulation. Verse 29, Matthew 24:29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be dark, and the moon shall not give a light, the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Then it says, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, because he's coming back in war. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So he's coming back immediately after. That's how you know it's not a rapture, because if he came back to get you at the rapture, then he came back again after tribulation, that's 2 second comings. No, it's only 1 second coming. Verse 31, though, and he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. So he's going to gather his people. Okay, that's his elect. Israel is his elect. So now they going into the wilderness. That is separate. See, that is separate from when they go into, when some of his people go into the place of safety during great tribulation. Okay, for 3.5 years. Then, so when they go in, that's when they going in as a nation as a whole, when he comes back. Okay, so now let's read. Now go back to Revelation 14. Revelation 14 and verse 1. It says, and I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written in their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven as the voice of many waters, and the voice of a great thunder. And I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps, and they sung, as it were, a new song before the throne. So now the throne of God, the Messiah, the throne of the Messiah is established at this point. It said, before the four beasts and the elders, and no man could learn that song but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. These are they which were not defiled with women, but they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. Okay, so now the Lamb, it was the Messiah, the Christ. That's why Jesus, when John saw Jesus, he said, behold, the Lamb of God, which taketh away the sin of the world. That's the Lamb. It says, these are they which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. They are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of God. Then it says something. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth. Now, to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to him. For the hour of judgment to come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of the earth. Let's go to another place. Let's go to Revelation, the 7th chapter. Because here it's also talking about this 144,000, but it's talking about a whole bunch of other people. This 144,000 is coming out of each of the 12,000 from each tribe. Okay? But it's not just them. Because you got, because some people say only 144,000 is going to be saved. And Revelation 7 and verse 4. It says, and I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Okay, So 12,000 from each tribe. Of the tribe of Judah was sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Reuben was sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Gad was sealed 12,000. God knows who's who. Okay. Now, verse 9, though, it says, after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white palms and white robes and palms in their hands. Okay. So now let's go to listen, this is out of great tribulation. Just to show you that, we read up in verse 1, it says, and after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God, and he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of God in their foreheads. Okay. And if you read prior to this, it's talking about all the things that are taking place in during Great Tribulation. Then it gets to the 6th seal, when you see the sign that was written in Matthew 24, you read about it in Joel, which indicates the coming of the Messiah. You read that from Revelation 6 and 12 on down to 17, because he's about to pour out his wrath. He said, but hold on, before you do that, seal them in their foreheads. The 144,000, but also many of other nations and multitudes of nations. So people get caught. They never read, or rarely I hear people read the next part. When it's talking about others from other nations, I never hear that. So that's something, a little something on the, let's see what else. Something on the 144,000 and as well as the wilderness. But if you want to know more about the wilderness, about Great Tribulation, I'd encourage you to go look at those lessons. All right. And this is this Thomas Troxel. All right. So now he says, your mind must be in a very frustrated and hard to understand place. He says, you feel your race to be a nation within a nation and needs to view themselves as such. You state yourself and others as not Americans. What an interesting was to further exclude yourselves. What an interesting was to further exclude yourselves. I'm not sure exactly what he means by that. I'm going to keep reading. Is that productive? What is an American? If you were in Jerusalem, you would likely feel like more of a minority and kind of without a people. What would all there think? What would all there think of Black Jesus or Black Moses? Was the entire Bible written by Black people surrounded by Black people? Israel is just a leap from a whole lot of different looking pale people. Black King David or Black Abraham would certainly be part of a very interesting family tree, since it is a very large tree and many branches are obviously affected. Was Adam and Eve Black? I would be very interested in hearing of near-death experiences from someone in which Jesus was explained as Black. I have viewed many NDE or visions, dreams, explained in which Jesus was Black. I guess he mean near-death experiences. I've never heard the acronym NDE. Nevertheless, okay. That's one thing. Never mind. I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to read this whole thing. Okay, so he says, I have viewed many NDE or visions, dreams explaining which Jesus was met. I've never typed white as a search word. Jesus just always happens to always be white. Man, has anyone seen Black Jesus? It's unfortunate that mankind typically lives within a self-created world of lies. I wish you luck in figuring out the truth, as well as, most importantly, how much it really doesn't matter. Thank you for your time. Man, he told me. Okay, so now I'm gonna dissect this foolishness. All right, and for the edification of somebody else. One thing I want to say: the audacity of some people And the fact that they are so racist, they don't even understand what they're saying. They know so little about even their own American history. Okay? The audacity, the white privilege, if you will, of someone to tell me how I should feel based on what has happened to my people in this diaspora. So the first part, he says, your mind must be in a very frustrated and hard to understand place. I'm frustrated with my people and the foolishness that they do, but I understand what's going on. I understand we're stiff-necked and hard-hearted people. I understand that we as a people have turned our backs on the living God. But I also understand the prophecies that would happen. And the prophecies that his people in particular will be cast into slavery by way of slave ships. He says, you feel your race to be a nation within a nation. Okay? So some would say race is a social construct. I believe, yes, we are a nation within a nation. Just because you take somebody from another place and put them somewhere else don't make them automatically that people. And if their kids are born in that place, does not necessarily make them that people. Many scholars will support, and it's asinine when you really think about it. You calling, not you, I'm just saying in general. For example, the terms that we use, black, Negro, those are colors. Then you say African American. Africa is a continent with 54 countries approximately. Which one are you from specifically? So you name yourself after a continent, then the Americas are another continent. Some would say that are named after Amerigo Vespucci. I've heard a couple theories on that, but that's the most dominant, well, prominent one. Amerigo Vespucci was an Italian. So you name yourself after the Italian who the continent was named after. That's what some scholars say. That makes absolutely no sense. I'm going to give you an example. Let me go just to show you. Yeah, you can be born in a country. That don't mean you're a part of that country. Let's go to Philippians. You could be even a citizen. I'm going to show you this. This is Philippians. Philippians. We're going to pick it up in the 3rd chapter. Philippians 3 and verse 4. Now, this is Paul. He's going to give you his pedigree. He says in verse 4, Philippians 3 and verse 4, he says, though I might also have confidence in the flesh, if any other man thinketh that he hath whereof he might trust in the flesh, I more. So he says, you want to trust in your flesh? Let me tell you about me. He says, circumcised the 8th day of the stock of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, and Hebrew of the Hebrews, as touching the law, a Pharisee. So now, specifically speaking, he was a Pharisee. He's a Hebrew. He is specifically of the tribe of Benjamin and of the nation of Israel. Okay, but what was he also? Let's go to Acts 21. He was also a Roman citizen, though. Okay. Now let's go to Acts 21, and I'm gonna pick it up at verse 37. It's talking about the same Apostle Paul. You know, the one that they depict as white. He's usually bald, looking scholarly with some robe on, right? This is Acts 21 and verse 37. It says, and as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, may I speak unto thee in Greek? Or he said, may I speak unto thee? Who said, excuse me, he said, may I speak unto thee? Who said, canst thou speak Greek? So now the chief captain in the council said, wait a minute, can you can speak Greek? Then he asked him a question. He says, art not thou that Egyptian? which before these days made us an uproar, led us out into the wilderness, 4,000 men that were murderers. So he was looking for somebody else. But Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus. He said, a city in Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city. I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people. Now, wait a minute. Now he calls himself a Benjamite earlier, but then he says he's a Jew here, because understand, after the northern tribes went into captivity in the Assyrians in 721, 722, And you had the South still. You had, which consisted mainly of Judah, and you had Benjamin and Levi scattered in there. Okay, so now when he's saying he's a Jew, he's talking about that was the common name, because you could be a Jew two ways. There's no Judaism. Understand that in the Bible. What you had was, you had those who were Judeans they were from the tribe of Judah, or they were a part of that southern kingdom, which again consisted of Judah, Benjamin, and you had Levi scattered in. Okay, so that's what he's saying. That's what the common name was. Okay, so now he asked him, "Canst thou speak Greek?" Okay, but he was, if you read about Paul, he had Roman citizenship, but that didn't make him an Italian. That didn't make him an Italian because he had Roman citizenship. And furthermore, what did the captain of the castle, the chief captain of the castle, mistake him for? He mistook him for an Egyptian. Why did he mistake him for an Egyptian? Perhaps he had to look like an Egyptian. Okay, so if you say, well, this is after, that place had been conquered, and intermingled with the people, the original Egyptians. If you look at ancient Greek and historian records and accounts of what the Egyptians looked like, you understand that the Egyptians were a black people. Okay, they were a black people. That's what Joseph, you read in Genesis, was mistaken as Egyptian. Moses, or Moshe, was mistaken as an Egyptian. And Paul was mistaken as an Egyptian. The Messiah was hid where? In Egypt from Herod. Okay, but that didn't make them. That didn't make them of Egypt, of Kemet, even though they were in Kemet or Mitzrayim or Egypt. Just like it didn't make Paul and a Roman or an actual Italian just because he is in that place. See, let's not be stupid or ignorant. Okay, let's not be ignorant. Let's go to give me 1 second. Acts 22. I just want to pick up something just because I want to read this to you. I want to read this to you just to show you he was a Roman citizen. Just like I could say I'm an American citizen. I was born here by the consequence of my ancestors being brought here on slave ships, which was a consequence of their ancestors sinning against God, and in them they being scattered throughout the African continent. But I'll go to Acts 22 and pick it up at verse 24. It said the chief captain commanded him to be brought into the castle and bade that he should be examined by scourging, that he might know wherefore they cried so against him. Then it says something, and as they bound him with thongs, Paul said unto the centurion that stood by, is it lawful for you to scourge a man that is a Roman and uncondemned? When the centurion heard that, he went and told the chief captain, saying, take heed what thou doest, for this man is a Roman. But was he Italian? Was he descended from Romulus and Augustus? Was from one of the Caesars? No. He was a Hebrew. He was a Hebrew. He happened to have their citizenship. Let's go to a little other part of this letter. So when I say we not Americans, you see the audacity of people. First of all, everything America has done to us has been rejection. Has shown us they're not Americans. Even from the Constitution saying we're free from a human being, from them depriving us of our rights, from them enslaving, that was government sanctioned slavery. 246 years, government sanctioned Jim Crow, another 100 years. You've just had some semblance of freedom since 1968. That is not a long time. And you telling me we Americans? If we are Americans and these citizens, yes, you second-class citizen. But nevertheless, we are not descended from this place. See, these Europeans that are here can go and say, yeah, we're an American. I'm an American. But actually, ain't none of them from here. They can say, yeah, we from Ireland. Yeah, we Scottish. Yeah, we Lithuanian. Yes, we're German. Yes, we're Poles from Poland. They can say those things that came here. So when I said we're not American, we are not from this place. Don't be ignorant. We're not from here. We're not from here. And talking about is that, what do you say? Is that productive? Let me tell you something. Don't tell me or ask me what's productive. What would be productive for my people would be to turn back to the true and living God. And the enemy would not be over us. The enemy is over us right now because we've turned our back on God. Is that productive? See, what's not productive? Like I did in the last lesson, he called us to be sanctified, set apart. We shouldn't be trying to intermingle with you and trying to be American, trying to be a part of this. No, be set apart, be sanctified. So he says, what is an American? I don't really care. I really don't care. Listen, my ancestors built the country through slavery. That's where you get the foundation of its wealth from. And we have been disrespected. And even in us mentioning it, you bred us like cattle. You enslaved our people. You sold children. You raped women. You raped men. Cut off fingers and toes and branded people with R's with a branding iron for those who ran away, and would castrate men if they ran away several times. Don't talk to me about being an American. You lynched people throughout this country. You want to talk to me about being an American? Why would I want to be an American? When America, under that banner, is when all that oppression took place. Even in your national anthem, you disrespect my ancestors. Why would I want to be an American? America has disrespected the descendants of slaves from day one, even until this day. But Negroes are so lost and so without identity, because we the people of the book. But we are lost and so without identity, we want to be everything. Because we have lost identity, which was prophesied. He said, I will cease. Let me go to just read it. Let's go to Deuteronomy 32. I will make their remembrance to cease from among men. But this is Deuteronomy 32. In verse 26, he said, I said, I will scatter them into corners. I will make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. He scattered us everywhere. We everywhere in the diaspora. So he says, if you were in Jerusalem, you would likely feel like a minority and counted without a people. First of all, you can't tell me how I would feel, because you're not me. You know how you would feel. But see, I understand that the land, we were pushed out of the land after 70 AD. That place was sieged, and all those that weren't killed during the siege, crucified, sold into slavery, went into the interior of Africa. They went into the interior of Africa. And then what happened? Some other people came into that land. That's what happened. Some other people came into that land. And then you got some people who calling themselves some Jews. But the Jews are black people. Listen, if you look at that area, you're talking about a hop, skip, and a jump away from white. Yeah, you Europeans, but them people are black people. The rich people originally, even the people in Mesopotamia, the people that all in Africa and in the so-called Middle East, many of those people were black people. So and even just to show you that, even if you go to Palestine today, you go in that land today, you will see black people, I mean darker than me, who say they are Arabs, that have been there for generations. Been there for generations. Look in your own Greek scholars, and your own Roman scholars and look at the Egyptians were black people. Why is this key? Because you did not get these European-looking so-called Jews in this land. These are not the same people that came out of Egyptian bondage. Are you crazy? I guess you are. You just ignorant. You ignorant. That's what it is. You ignorant. You don't know. Like most people don't know. And when you call them on, you ask questions of them, because everybody is Jew. Everybody, the people that are there now that are perpetuating that falsehood, everybody's a Jew. Wait a minute. Hold on. Stop the press. It's 12 tribes. They went back in 1948. I thought David was supposed to be reigning when they go back. They supposed to be regathered at the second coming of the Messiah, not in 1948. They initially was going to go in an African country, on the African continent. Well, I'm talking about political boundaries now, because Israel really is a part of Africa. In the sense of how it's, if you look at the land mass. But nevertheless, there's some people argue with me with that, but I don't really care. So let's go. It says, if you were in Jerusalem, you would feel like of a minority. That's because other people are in the land. Let's go to Joel. Let me read you something, show you what I'm looking for. And that's another thing, man. Racism is going to get people cut off. Because you can't, if you think if people are less than, if you think, I'm here to tell you, if you don't think who Israel actually is important, because that's what it boils down to. See, people think that you on some Afrocentric trip when you say Israel is the black people that have been scattered into slavery all over the world. What you fail to understand in your ignorance and in your racism is that if you don't understand that that is the truth, you don't understand biblical prophecy. You don't understand biblical prophecy. This is Joel 2, or Joel 3, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. And I'm going to show you what I'm looking for. It said, behold, in those days and in that time when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem. I'm looking for the restoration of a people that have been enslaved. I'm not looking to be an American. I could care less about that. Because see, just how great you think this country is and how fast it rose to great power and prominence among the other nations, it's going to fall just as fast. That's what you don't understand. It says in verse 2. That's what I'm saying. These people, well, they got so much to talk about, and at the same time, in coded language, telling you they want to make America great again. Well, when was it great? When my people were in bondage? When was it great? When we couldn't sit in a lunch at a lunch counter to get a cup of coffee, had to go around back. We were serving in the military in segregated regiments. Was it great then? Great for who? Is it great now when we're in an era of mass incarceration and young men, unarmed black men getting shot in the streets? Is it great now when black folks, when white people have 20 times more wealth than black people? Who is it great for? We are in a state of, if you look at the brother Dr. Claude Anderson, he tell you we are basically a permanent underclass, economically speaking. So where was this greatness at? Give me a break. So it says, for behold, in those days and in that time when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, we still in captivity. We still have not made it home. Verse 2. I will also gather all nations. And that's another thing. Many of these white people will say, not all of them, but many of them will say, when you don't like it, go home. Man, give me everything you owe me, and you won't have an America. But verse 2, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and part of my land. See, what you fail to realize in that battle of Armageddon, while the Lord is coming back in wrath against all these nations, he's coming back in that way because of what the nations have done to his people. That's what you fail to understand. And his people were sold into captivity. Hold your finger here. I want to read just one verse in Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28 and verse 68. Because see here, the prophet Moses, he prophesied of what was going to happen to his people. It says in verse 68, And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. Egypt, you read in Exodus 20, when you read the 10 Commandments, he calls Egypt the house of bondage. So you don't need to go to Egypt with a ship. He said, and the Lord shall bring from Israel, it says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. Because he tells you what's going to happen to your people. He says, if you read Deuteronomy 28, it talks about your children being sold and your wives being raped and you being taken into captivity. Then he says, you going into slavery by way of slave ships. By way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there you shall be sold unto your enemy to bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Meaning nobody's going to redeem you. Nobody's going to get you out of that situation. When is that going to happen? When you going to get out of that situation? Read Matthew 24, verses 29 through 31. When immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be dark, and the moon shall not give a light, the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Then you're going to see the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and he's going to gather his very elect from the four winds of heaven, from one end of the earth to the very other. That's what's going to happen. So that's what we're reading about in Joel. And he said, when he's talking about all the tribes of the earth mourning in Matthew 24, why? Because he's coming back in wrath. Why is he so angry? He's angry because of the sin of this earth, the sin of man. He's also angry because of what the nations have done to his people. All the atrocities to his people. He said, you help forward the affliction. It says, listen to what they did. So he said, I will also gather all nations and bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat. That's where he's going to judge. It says, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, a part of my land. See, you nations, you other nations, you heathen, have parted his land. That's who did it. You parted his land. You cast lots for his people. It says, and they have cast lots for my people and have given a boy for a harlot and sold a girl for wine that they might drink. You sold a boy so you could get a prostitute. You sold a girl so you could get drunk off some wine. That's what you did to God's people. See, the one you have so much disdain for. And the one that's ignorant, following you wherever you go, trying to move into your neighborhood right behind you. Trying to be whatever you are and being rejected on every side. On every side throughout history. The same way you did that too, that's God's people. The irony is, you got many of these white evangelicals. They so quick to talk about Israel and support Israel, but a lot of them got racial undertones in their messages, in their political stance. But they steady talking about Israel and support the Israelis. We love you. We love you. Not the people though. Those are not the people. You know the ones that keep getting that's going to affect them most with all these benefits I cut? Those are people. I read some of these religious publications, and look at the racist undertone of some of these religious publications. National publications, religious national publications online. They talk about religious news, and they say, I saw one today, matter of fact. I saw one today, had a racist title in it. Nevertheless, it said, yeah, and what have you to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon? I'm going to skip down a little bit. It says in verse 6, it said, the children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, that ye might remove them far from their border. Say, behold, I'll raise them out of the place where ye have sold them and return your recompense upon your own head. So you're going to pay for that. It says, and I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah. When the Lord, people don't understand that when the Lord come back, so you see these brothers on the corner talking about, they screaming about people white folks going into slavery. Where do you think they got that from? They got that from the Bible. That's written. It's written as far as nations, you're going to be servants to his people who happen to be a black people that have been scattered into slavery all over the world. Why is that so hard? We can't believe that. See, you can't because you don't understand. Isn't that not the universal principle? You reap what you sow? Would that not be fitting after what's been done? The last first and the first last. But he said, and I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them to the Sabians, to a people far off. For the Lord has spoken. He said, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war, wake up the mighty men, and all the men of war draw near. Let them come up, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. He is going to do some serious killing at this time. Read Revelation. About the war of Armageddon, Revelation 19. He's going to do some serious killing. He says in verse 13, put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come ye, get you down, for the press is full, the fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near, and the valley of decision. How do we know what sign this is? The sun and the moon shall be darkened, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. The Lord also shall roar out of Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem. And the heavens and the earth shall shake, but the Lord will be the hope of his people and the strength of the children of Israel. And then, see, this is what I'm looking for. Because he said, I read all that to get to this. Because he said, if you went to Jerusalem now, he said, you would likely feel more of a minority and kind of without a people. You're going to tell me how I'm going to feel. This is what I'm looking for. It says, verse 17, so shall ye know that I am the Lord your God, dwelling in Zion, my holy mountain. Then shall Jerusalem be holy, and there shall no strangers pass through her anymore. Won't be any strangers like it is in that now. The people perpetrating the fraud, those are the synagogue of Satan. It won't be going on then. So they'll be cast out. So it says, what would all their, I guess, them think of a black Jesus or black Moses? I don't care what they think. The Bible tell you they black. See, but you people so deceived, and you got black people with the same mindset as well. It ain't important. Because he ended it with that. He says, you will find it most important how much it really don't matter. If it did not image, I'm going to tell you something. In men's minds, in people's minds, the image is more powerful than the word. I'm going to say that again. In the mind of people, the image is more powerful than even the words that are spoken. That's why so many, even though they know that the Messiah is black, they believe it in their mind. When they see him, they see a white man. Why? Because they were shown that image so much. But how is it? Because if it don't matter, just say black then. See, when you say, hey, history tells us, and I'm going to show you some history, but history shows us that these people were black. Oh, it don't really matter. Well, why you make them white then? Because it do matter. You further enslave the mindset of the people. And in your arrogance. See, that's another thing. You made the people white, and then you put a Europeanized interpretation of the book. The book says something totally different from what's being said in these churches. But this is Revelation 1:1. It says, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him to show unto his servants things which must surely come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John. So that's a revelation of Christ. Then it says something about how he looked. Verse 13. Or verse 14. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. There was a false prophet out of Alabama. He gonna read this, right, and say, see, it ain't talking about he got what he had. Y'all talking about he black. And then he didn't read the rest. At least from what I saw, he didn't read the rest. But nevertheless, he's still a false prophet. Then it says, and his feet. See, he didn't read this part. And his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. See, when you talking about Jesus being, what would they say? I don't care what they think. You ain't figured that out? You must not watch this page much often. You must have watched one video. And I don't care. I really don't care what you think. I don't care what you think. I don't care what they think. You know what else is not important? My own opinion. What is important was thus said the Lord. You see, you want to believe a lie because it's convenient for you. To hell with the lies. To hell with the lies. It's time for the truth. It's time to come up out of the lies. And if you can't accept something as little as this, you can't accept the truth, period. It said his feet like unto fine brass as if they burn in the furnace. What color was he? His feet are black. Let's go to Exodus. Let's go to Exodus. Third chapter. Or second chapter, excuse me. Exodus, the second chapter. And this is when Moses, who grew up in the household of Pharaoh, who these people were black people. Let me just show you. Give me a second. Let me just show you this. I want to share this with you. Give me 1 second. All right, here we go. We'll go back up. Let me show this to you. See, the people of Babylonia, where Abraham came from, these were black, called themselves the black-headed people. If you want to really look at history. We'll go down a little bit. Because in this lesson I was dealing with just the history of black people. Now, Joseph was in Egypt. If you notice the Sphinx, before the nose was defaced or removed or whatever happened to the nose, you can tell this is an African looking face with the lips, the nose, and even this Denon who saw it, he etched the Sphinx in 1789. He said, though its proportions are colossal, the outline is pure and graceful, the expression of the head is mild, gracious and tranquil, the character is African. Why is that important? Because when you read Exodus 2, and you read about Moses in Exodus 2, when he fled to the place of Midian, and he drew water for the priest of Midian's 7 daughters, or his daughters, and it's, because of what the shepherds did, he helped them, and his father asked him, how were they back so soon, in verse 19 of Exodus 2, and they said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock. Now they referred to Moses, who they didn't know at the time, as an Egyptian. If he thought he was an Egyptian, he must have looked like the Egyptians. What were the Egyptians? Africans. They were black Africans. Even Joseph is mistaken for an Egyptian by his own brothers. He knew them, but they didn't know him. How? Because you would think if he looked like these white folks in the land right now, and he was in Egypt, he would have stuck out. But no, because he was just one black man amongst others. This is Khufu, black features. He was a pharaoh. This is painted relief in Egypt, Egyptians. This is an infantry. Ramses II, black. Queen Tati, black. Mentuhotep II, black. Meritaten, daughter of Pharaoh Akhenaten, black. She looked like a round the way girl. Look at these are black people. Amenemhet the third. These are black people. Now, 2005, you got this. Now this look like this supposed to be Tutankhamun now. This goes directly against the actual images or the structures that were built. That was supposed to be him, but then they make their own out of the vain imagination of their mind. But then also when you read, like I said, Greek historians, they will tell you that they're black. Read the histories by Herodotus, the so-called father history. He tells you indirectly that the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, he says are black color by reason of the burning heat. Now he went there in 480. Well, this is between Herodotus between 484 and 425 BC. You see how long ago he went there? How he described the Egyptians? the Egyptians look like an Arab or white Arab a country now, a nation now, because of the Arab conquest that happened 600 plus years or so after the Messiah walked the earth. Let's go to, so this is Sheikh Anta Diop. He says, in African origin, civilization, myth, or reality, Herodotus may be mistaken when he reports the customs of a people, when he reasons more or less cleverly to explain a phenomenon incomprehensible in his day, but one must grant that he was at least capable of recognizing the skin color of the inhabitants of countries he has visited. Why is that so important? Because, brothers and sisters, if Herodotus described the Egyptians as black, the Israelites on several occasions are mistaken for Egyptians, so they must be black people too. That's just like if I went right now to Nigeria, I could blend right in. If I went right now to South Africa, if I open my mouth, I could blend right in. But if I go to Norway, not so much. If I go to Poland, not so much. If I go to Denmark, or if I go to France, they wouldn't. They know I was a foreigner. They might look at me as an African. Maspero says, by the almost unanimous testimony of ancient historians, they Egyptians belong to the African race, which first settled in Ethiopia. Go down a little bit because this other stuff is. Now I want to show you some images. This is, I mentioned this Assyrian siege. These are not white people. You see these cornrows? See that knotty hair? That's it. That's from the Lachish reliefs. That's the Israelite city. That's the dispersion of the 10 tribes. This is a relief in the museum in Paris, France, of the Babylonian captivity. Notice these, more than likely Israelites. Notice the fringes. Notice the hair. These are locks. These are not white people. Okay? All right. Now, I want to show you some other images. This is a book, and I encourage you to get it. It's available on Amazon. This book is called Hair Like Wool, Feet Like Burned Brass, The Color of Jesus and Burning Truths Concerning the Messiah. If you look here, this is not a, look at this. This is, I showed this to somebody that thought it was a cartoon drawing. This is not a cartoon drawing. This is a painting that is of Jesus and the disciples in a catacomb in Italy, of all places, during the 4th century. That's when it was made. What color is Jesus? He's right there in the middle. And his disciples, all black people. All black people. But somebody thought this was a cartoon drawing. But they couldn't believe that, but then other people will believe the white images of Christ. Those came much, much later after he died. This you're talking about during the Renaissance era. Michelangelo, Da Vinci would paint these Europeanized images of the people. The people were black Judeans. These are black Judeans. So when you talk about it don't matter, you got to ask yourself, if it didn't matter, why did they change it? Not to mention the fact, if you can look at this book, again, other pictures right here. That's an ancient painting of Jesus and the disciples. They're all black. You have hundreds and hundreds of black Madonnas. Where? Not in Africa, but in Europe. You see that? That blue black. Now I'm not saying these are images that should be reverenced, if you will. I'm saying what the fact is. If you go, and there's other, you go throughout Italy in the catacombs, things from 300 BC. Here's pictures of Abraham's black right here. That's supposed to be Noah. These are all black people. These are all black people. Dude, the man asked me, he said, was Adam and Eve black? Of course they were. You don't even have to, if you go back to the very beginning of man and woman, you don't even have to pick up a Bible to understand that they were black people. Why do I say that? Because the black is dominant. You cannot get, if you're talking about the genesis of mankind, you cannot get this variation from white people. Not at the Genesis, you can't. Not at the Genesis, not at the very, I'm going to qualify this, not at the very beginning. It had to start with a black man and a black woman. So that poem when a Negro speaks of rivers, by Langston Hughes, what he's talking about, we were at the very beginning. That's true. That's true. Check that poem out. That's true. That part of it is true. When the concept of it is true. Here's Samson. He's black. That's from, again, a catacomb in Rome. That's about 350 AD. You didn't get these white images until much later. Okay? Check this book out. Check this book out. Hair like wolf, feet like burned brass. So what else does this man say? Black King David, a black Abraham. Anyway, what's absurd is a white David or a white Abraham. European. Jesus with blue eyes, blonde hair in the middle of Israel. Give me a break. That just shows the audacity of these people. And that kind of mindset is going to get you cut off. It said Black King David or Black Abraham would certainly be part of a very interesting family tree. And many branches are obviously affected. Was he already answered that? Was Adam and Eve black? I would be very interested in hearing near-death experiences. So that's one thing about these near-death experiences. The near-death experiences, we read that to me in the Bible. Well, listen, and you talking about they never saw, it says, what it say? I have viewed many near-death experiences or visions, dreams explaining which Jesus was met. I don't care what these people say. I'm talking about what thus said the Lord. These are some people that are like, you got, just like you got all these people saying they had a near-death, and I'm going to tie this into the other question. They got near-death experiences and they done gone off to heaven. And they done came back. You a liar. You ain't going nowhere. You are a liar. I say all of them are liars. Like I said earlier when I was answering the sister's question, if you say something that's contrary to the word of God, I know you did what you said didn't come from God. Why? Let's go to because I want to read this question. I'm gonna read this question in this other man's comment. This brother here says, I've been watching you, this brother Joseph, but one day, forgive me if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. He said, I've been watching your teaching for a week now. I just want to be clear on something. What happens to a man when he dies and where does his soul go? And about heaven. Should we say man shall never live in heaven where Jesus is, or after man dies, that soul goes to the creator, and after that, after this world, that's when heaven shall be here on the earth? Okay, brother. So you talking about some near-death experience, and this brother's here talking about the soul. Well, let me tell you something about the soul. This is Genesis 2 and verse 7. See, he did not put a soul inside of you. You are the soul. I know that's a hard concept to understand. And the reason it's a hard concept to understand is because Greek philosophy seeped into Christianity many centuries ago, and it is the false Christianity of today that many of our people are dealing with. That concept that a soul is put inside of you. That's Greek philosophy. You get that from the Eastern spiritual systems. That's not biblical. That is not biblical. Like I said, the audacity of people to take these scriptures. This is a book of the Hebrew people. The Israelites. These are the people that God manifested himself unto. You can't take, or you shouldn't to your own detriment. You take what was written and given to them and concoct it and twist it and turn it into something that you wanted to be, and then put in your paganism in it and put in your philosophy in it. And what have you done? You've adulterated the word of God, and you've made a mess into a piece of your own detriment. I'm here to warn you. This is Genesis 2 and verse 7. It says, and the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And man, listen to this, please. Man became a living soul. It didn't say he put a soul inside of man. It says he became a living soul. And when you die, you are a dead soul. Let's go to Genesis 5 real quick. Genesis 5 and verse Well, actually, Genesis 3 and verse 17. Because when man sinned against God, he said, in the day that thou eatest of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt surely die. We know they partook of this fruit, which was food for thought, and death entered into the world. And that was put on man, and man has been dying ever since. But death is not you this body died, and the soul inside you float off somewhere like in that foolish movie Ghost. No, you die. Genesis 3 and verse 17. And unto Adam, he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake, and sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee. Thou shalt eat the herb of the field, and the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground, for out of it wast thou taken, from dust thou art, and to dust shalt thou return. That's death. He didn't say you're going to heaven. He said you're going back to the dust. Let's go to Ecclesiastes real quick. Well, matter of fact, hold on. Yeah, let's go to Ecclesiastes. Just see the state of things. Ecclesiastes, the 9th chapter. Because there's nothing, you are dead. That's it. You want to make it out to, I'm not yelling at the brother. I'm just talking about the mindset of people. You want to make it out to be something, because it's ugly. Death is ugly. But death, it is what it is. It's punishment for sin. It's supposed to be ugly. That's punishment for sin. I don't care what you say, dude. Listen, they're going to put you on the ground. They put you in the grave, put that body in the ground. Worms going to eat your carcass, and you're going to perish. You have to turn back to the dust. But you read what thus said the Lord, and he says something. Verse 3, 9 and 3, Ecclesiastes 9 and 3. It says, but it said, this is an evil among all things that are done under the sun, that there is one event unto all, yea, also the heart of the sons of men is full of evil, and madness is in their heart while they live, and after that they go to the dead. See, this is a terrible thing, but that's the reality of it. That's the harsh reality of the human condition. You can't make it something that is not. And it says, for the living know that they shall die, but the dead know, with verse 4. For to him that is joined to all the living, there is hope. For a living dog is better than a dead lion. And he tells you why. It said, for the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything. Neither have they any more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. All that is gone. You go to the dust. Your soul don't float off anywhere. You can't read that anywhere. He said you are the soul. That's why in another place he said, if a soul sin in ignorance. What does he mean if a soul sin in ignorance? Meaning if you sin, you are the soul. Now let's go back to Genesis 5. And we're going to pick it up at verse 3. Genesis 5 and verse 3. Genesis 5 and verse 3. It says in Adam, well, I'm going to read verse 5. It says, in all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. Okay? He died. But it says, when you read it earlier, in Genesis, let's see. 2 and 17, it says, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. Adam lived 930 years. So we have a mistake here. Listen, or it seems to be a mistake, but it's only a mistake in a man's understanding. Let's get down to verse Genesis 5 and verse 27. And all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. So he said, in the day that thou eatest of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt surely die. But these men, one lived 930 years, another lived 960 years. Let's go to Genesis 6. Genesis 6, it says something. Verse 3. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. So now he made his days shorter. And that's what happened after the flood. Perhaps the conditions of the earth were different prior to the flood. But let's see how long a day to the Lord is. This is Psalms, the 90th division, Psalms 90, and I'm going to pick it up at verse 4.
It says, for 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night. So what is he saying? A day to him is just 1,000. A day to an infinite being is like God. He says 1,000 years. Verse 9. For all our days are passed away in thy wrath. Talking about us. We spend our years as a tale that is told. The days of our years are 80 years and 10, and if by reason of strength they be 80 or 80 years, yet is their strength labor in vain. But it's soon cut off and we fly away. It's not talking about we flying away to heaven. Let's go to the book of Job. Got to clear everything up. Let's go to Job. I mean, yeah, we fly away, then we off. Negroes off to see the wizard or something. No, we not. That's where your mind is at. It's in some foolishness. Let's go to Job. Let's go to Job 20. I want to read this verse 8, 20 and 8. It just says, he shall fly away as a dream and shall not be found, yet he shall be chased away as a vision of the night. I'm telling you, he's not telling you that you're going to fly off to heaven. Matter of fact, we're going to read the words of Jesus in a second. But let's go to Job 14. It says in verse 1, Job 14, and one man that is born of a woman is a few days and full of trouble. He cometh forth like a flower and is cut down. He fleeth also as a shadow and continueth not. And he says something here. Verse 10. But man dieth and wasteth away. Yea, man giveth up the ghost. And where is he? What ghost? That's the spirit, which is the breath of life. It says, as the waters fail from the sea and the flood decayeth and drieth up, so man lieth down and riseth not. See, man lies down and riseth not till the heavens be no more. It's the time of the resurrection that man is going to come up out of the grave. Because you think about it, if he in heaven now, what about the resurrection? If your soul is in heaven now, see, all foolishness. It says so man, in verse 12, so man lieth down and riseth not till the heavens be no more. They shall not awake nor be raised out of their sleep. Oh, that thou wouldest hide me in the grave, that thou wouldest keep me secret until thy wrath be past, that thou wouldest appoint me a set time and remember me. If a man die, shall he live again? All the days of my appointed time will I wait till my change come. Thou shalt call, and I will answer thee. Thou wilt have a desire to the work of thine hands. So he's saying, listen, the Lord's going to call, and I'm going to answer thee. Let's go to Matthew. See, you're not in heaven. Nobody that's dead is in heaven now. I said Matthew, I think I meant John. John, the 5th chapter, Gospel according to John chapter 5. See, he said he's going to call and I'm going to answer. John 5 and verse 28. It said, marvel not at this. John 5 and verse 28. Marvel not at this, for the hour is coming in the which all that are in the grave shall hear his voice. See, he's going to call. It says, and shall come forth, they that have done good unto the resurrection of life, and they that have done evil unto the resurrection of damnation. See, you are in the grave unto the resurrection. You are not in heaven. Matter of fact, he tells you you're not going to heaven. This is John, stay in John, chapter 3 and verse 13. He tells you very clearly, and no man hath ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man, which is in heaven. See, you're not going to heaven. John 8. John 8th chapter. John 8 and verse 21. John 8 and verse 21. It said, then said Jesus again unto them, I go my way, and ye shall seek me, and shall die in your sins. Whither I go, ye cannot come. And where did he go? He went to sit on the right hand of the Father. So when the brother says, what happens to man when he dies and where does his soul go? You are the soul. You are buried in the ground, and you are there until when? Until the resurrection. See, Jesus actually shows you, because Jesus, the first fruits, they that are Christ at his coming, he showed you what was going to happen, because he's the first to be resurrected from the dead. When he went in that grave, in that sepulcher for 3 days and 3 nights, he went in on the Passover, came up on the Sabbath. When they went to see him, the body was gone because it had been resurrected. And he had a new body. He didn't put you in a grave and then your soul floated off somewhere. No, look at the example of Jesus. That's what's going to happen when he calls at the time of the resurrection. So, and read 1 Corinthians 15 to get better, because Paul expounds on the resurrection there. But it says, and about heaven shall we say, man shall never live in heaven where Jesus is or after. Listen, we just read, whether I go, ye cannot come. John 7 and 34. Well, I'm going to read verse 32. So it's clear here. It's clear everywhere else. But it said, then said Jesus unto them, yet a little while I am with you, and then I go unto him that sent me. Who sent him? The Father. Where's the Father? The Father's in that third heaven. See, because when you say heaven, you have to qualify. The earth is referred to as heaven, where the sky is, and the moon is referred to as heaven, and where the third heaven, the heaven above the waters, the heaven that you can't even look up and see where the Father's throne is, that, brothers and sisters, is where he was. That's also referred to as heaven. Paul talks about the third heaven. But nevertheless, and that's the one you're not going to. You've been in the airplane, you've been to heaven, you walking on the earth, it's referred to as heaven in the Bible. Nevertheless, 33, John 7 and 33, it says, then said Jesus unto them, yet a little while I am with you, and then I go unto him that sent me. Ye shall seek me, and shall not find me, and where I am, thither ye cannot come. You ain't coming. You want to get to heaven, but you ain't going. So these near-death experiences, I went to heaven, I saw, walked around with Tupac. You ain't do nothing. Is that heaven for a gangster? No. It says, and about heaven should we say, man shall never live in heaven where Jesus is. You're not doing it. We just read that. Jesus tells you that. It says, or after man dies, that soul goes to the Creator. No, you going to the grave where he told you. From dust thou art, into dust shalt thou return. And after this world, that's when heaven shall be here on earth. Thank you. Matthew 5. Now that part, that's what you need to understand. I said Matthew 5, I'm in Matthew 6. Because when he told his disciples how to pray, he gave instruction on prayer. He said something. Verse 13, Matthew 6 and 13. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. Even in Matthew 5, when he's talking about in verse 3, blessed, it gives a sermon on the mount. He said, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. But the kingdom of heaven is going to be here on this earth. That's why he also says in verse 5, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. The poor in spirit are the meek. Those are synonyms. Let's go to Revelation. And I ended on this with this brother question. I might go back into this other comment. But Revelation 20 and verse 21, excuse me. Revelation 21 and verse 1. It says, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. That's why you read in John about the 14th chapter. He said, I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go, I shall come again and bring you unto myself. He's coming back to this earth. He's not coming back to this earth to take you to heaven. He's coming back to this earth to reign from Jerusalem. His feet are going to land on the Mount of Olives, just where they left from when he ascended to heaven. You read that in Acts, the 1st chapter. And you read in Zechariah, he's going to return back. You also read in Zechariah, he's going to reign from Jerusalem. That's the city of the great king. He's going to sit on the throne of his father David. Hello? Where was David's throne? In Jerusalem. So listen to this. It says, and I, John, verse 2, Revelation 21 and 2, and I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle or the dwelling of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God. See, it's going to come a time where there will be no more flesh and blood. They all going to be here, right here on this earth. It says, and God shall wipe away all tears in their eyes, and there shall be no more death. See, that's when death is over. See, you try to make, not this brother, he asking the question, but a lot of people try to make death over when they say it's over. No, when you die, they're going to put you in that grave. It says, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. Now let's skip down a little bit. Because it says in this New Jerusalem, in verse 22, and I saw no temple there, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are the temple of it. See, a lot of people try to make they talk about the pearly gates as if this is in heaven somewhere. This is on the earth. It says, and the city had no need of the sun, neither the moon to shine in it, for the glory of the light of God did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. See, even the kingdom, the Messiah is going to reign for 1,000 years. That's at the first resurrection. He's going to come back. He's going to reign for 1,000 years. Then you got the second resurrection. And then this kingdom is going to be delivered up to the Father. If you read 1 Corinthians, the 15th chapter, it tells you that. In verse 24, then cometh the end when he shall have delivered up the kingdom to the God, even the Father, when he shall have put down all rule and authority. For he must reign till he have put all enemies under his feet. The last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. That's when death is over. It's not over when you die. And just because you feel bad, that makes people feel good. And you got these false prophets that know better. They still preach that foolishness at the funeral. But this is again 21, Revelation 21 and verse Revelation 21 and verse I forgot what left off 22. And I saw no temple therein, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are the temple of it. And the city had no need of the sun, neither the moon to shine in it, for the glory of God did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. And the nations of them which are saved shall walk in the light of it, and the kings of the earth do bring their glory and honor unto it. This is on the earth, brothers and sisters. This is on the earth. So yeah, you dead. When you die, you in that grave until the time of the resurrection. Nobody's going to heaven, and he's gonna bring heaven here on this earth. New heaven and new earth is what he's creating. Okay, he made this earth. As you read in Isaiah 45th chapter, verse 18, to be inhabited. Let's go to now back to this man's statement, and I'm done. What time is it? I mean, 2 hours. This is so back to this. Let me see if there's another part of this I need to read. Back to this Thomas Troxel question, because he said, talking about near-death experiences, I have viewed many NDE or visions, dreams, explained it was Jesus was met. I never typed white as a search word. It's never important when he white. But Jesus is white. But once you say the truth that he was a black man, then it's a problem. Yeah, that's why I say you can't even accept that. How you gonna truly accept his word? Jesus just always happens to be white. No, he is not white. I just showed you an example. You look at the earliest depictions of him, he was not. This is not a cartoon draw. I didn't draw this. This is in Italy. This is in the catacombs in Italy. He just happens to be white. No, you Europeans made him white. You painted him white. And this is only a few hundred years ago that you started doing this. He just happened to be white. Has anyone you've met seen black Jesus? You better be careful about what you mocking. It's unfortunate that mankind typically lives within a self-created world of lies. That's what Europeans have done. You've lied about history. You've lied about listen, Europe was the last place to be civilized on this planet. And what it's called Western civilization was Western barbarity. Europe produced no major religion. Didn't come out of Europe. Greek philosophy didn't even come out of Europe. Greek philosophy came out of Egypt, out of Kemet. Nevertheless, it says, it's unfortunate that mankind typically lives within a self-created world of lies. You the liar. I wish you luck in figuring out the truth. The word is truth. I already know what the truth is. You don't know. As well as, most importantly, how much it really doesn't matter. I guess you're talking about color really don't matter. I'm just telling what the truth is. And if it didn't matter, you Europeans wouldn't have tried to change it and further enslave the minds of black folks with it. And that's it, brothers and sisters. So that's some responses to questions, and even responses to comments that were made. And I respond to the comments, not because again, I'm so upset with the person and I'm just feelings hurt, but rather somebody will be edified, and maybe even that person will be edified to actually self-examine themselves and question and say, man, maybe I am in error. Because if you do a little bit of research, you can understand that these people are not the people. Read the invention of the Jewish race. Read Khazars of Khazaria. Read the 13th tribe. Read even in the Outline of History by H.G. Wells. He talks about these converts. Just comments and read the Bible. Matter, scratch that. Read the Bible and have some common sense. You understand these people are not the people. And with that, brothers and sisters, always my prayer that you will edify. We at the House of Faith meet every Saturday, every Sabbath at Indiana University Northwest Library Conference Center, LC 105, 3400 Broadway, Gary, Indiana. 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We live stream right here on the IsraelTeach YouTube channel. We also live stream at IsraelTeach.org. We have a radio broadcast that airs every Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on WLTH 1370 AM, the Region's Choice. You can live stream our radio broadcast on the IsraelTeach YouTube channel. Just type or click on the radio broadcast link. We also moving into a new location soon. Stay tuned for that. We also have, you look at the beginning of the page, when you type in IsraelTeach, you'll see the books that are available. They're all available on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles in different places, just as references. And with that, brothers and sisters, peace.